Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Merge Podcast. Today, we're joined by another Irishman. We're joined by a mixologist, Matthew Lynn. So, welcome, Matthew. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks very much for having me, guys. It's good to be on.
Brilliant. I've got my wee Guinness as well, just especially because with a wee Irishman coming on. So,
I'm on the clear Guinness here.
Diet Guinness.
Still waiting for that non-alcoholic Guinness to come out, and that'd be great.
I've just got a beer, mate.
We just before we get into some of the stuff, Matthew, it's just reminded me we had a chap from Dublin called the Guinness Guru. Have you ever heard of him?
No. Well, I think I have actually heard of him. Does he do t-shirts and stuff like that? And he does Guinness drinks. I've seen him on Instagram. Like,
they've got a new. He basically just drinks loads of Guinness, right? But they've got a new can out called Guinness Surger. And it's like to be a proper pint of Guinness. It's like dead creamy and stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
With the wee, because you used to get them in pubs that didn't have draft, the vibrator underneath it. And then but people couldn't get them. So my cousin sent me a video there of him using like some sort of nail kit that was my cousin's husband, her nail kit, and it was vibrating the pint up, and he looked like an absolute criminal on it, to be fair, but it worked. But it looks really cool, like, because I've seen him and then that shit London Guinness as well. It's quality. Like, I have to say, I've sent back a few pints of Guinness in my time.
I can imagine.
Have you?
Plastic cups is my pet hate. Like, I can't. With Strathclyde Student Union, they're selling Guinness for $150. What do I expect? Like,
I don't glass in.
I'd still drink it. Whereabouts in Ireland are you from?
I'm from just outside Belfast. So I went to school in Belfast, but from just where the airport is, called a wee town called Crumlin.
Oh, aye. Crumlin Boxing Club? Is that what it?
It would be. I'm not actually entirely sure. Crumlin Boxing Club is probably, I think, on the Crumlin Road, which is in Belfast. So there's there's a boxing club out there, but I can't remember the name for a couple of my mates. Boxstar, Charlie Gallagher, and things like that.
Right. Nice.
Just outside it. But I moved over here in 2011.
How are you finding it so far?
Yeah, it's just like a home away from home. Like, I love Glasgow. I keep coming back. I've been all over the world, kind of luckily with university and stuff like that, just going through, like, studying abroad in America, working in America, and living in Spain. Yeah. And they just keep coming back to Glasgow. And it's definitely not the weather, like, so
No,
must be something, right? But I love Glasgow. It's like, I mean, I remember thinking about where I was going to move to, and I came here for like one night, and it was in the middle of that storm in 2010. The whole university was closed, nothing was there, I couldn't see anything. And it just goes, this is class. And you got the plane home the next day, and that was it. It was coming to Glasgow. Like, I haven't looked back since, to be honest. I mean, it's 3 hours door to door if I need to go home, so it works out ideal.
That's all right. You can't even drive to Manchester or something.
Exactly. It works out ideal.
So growing up in Belfast, we had a chap on from Belfast early on when we started the podcast, and we were quite intrigued to find out about the kind of divide that was in Belfast, maybe when you were growing up and stuff like that. And it was amazing. I've obviously read a lot about it and seen a lot of things about it. Would you say, he basically said the divide was like incredible, like you couldn't play football if you were Protestant, you're Catholic, you couldn't mix, you couldn't do this and that. Was that the case for yourself as well?
I think, like, the one thing that I'm kind of grateful for is, while, like, we're kind of like, I was born in 93 in the Good Friday Agreement, 97, 98. So, like, we're kind of peace babies, if that makes sense. Like, I remember the army being in the streets. I remember the checkpoints going to the airport. But, like, there was no overall trouble. There was bits and bobs, and it calmed down, but the divide is always there, and that's something that, like, people think you're being dramatic. Like, I just want to get away from it. I don't know why I came to Glasgow and you've got Rangers and Celtic. Like, the divide's always there in the background, and it's something you always feel on edge about. I find, like, I remember coming to certain, like, realizations when I came back from Glasgow and being like, I've only ever been in the Shankill Road 3 times in my life. Like, and 2 of them were by accident. So it's like, and that's just a road though. It's right beside the Falls Road, but I could take either to go home, and I'd always drive up the Falls. And you've got the peace lines, and like you went to school. I went to Catholic school, and it was very much that segregation has been there, and will sadly probably always be there. I think there's some statistic that they've actually built more peace walls than actually taken down in Belfast over the last kind of 20 years, which is madness. But like you couldn't play. Like, I grew up playing Gaelic football, which is like Irish football, and
crazy.
Yeah, it's quality. I mean, we had a couple of guys that played in our team, and one of them was a Protestant, and his nickname was Chris the Prod. Like, and he's class. He scored goals flat out, but like you wouldn't get. Like, and I think recently in Belfast they actually do have a Protestant, like not I wouldn't say a Protestant Gaelic team, a Gaelic team in a Protestant area, which is fantastic, strides forward. But the divide's always there in the background. Like I remember, like certain times of the year things would flare up. So the 12th would always be a big flare up, and you'd be more worried. I remember picking my high school, and my mum didn't want me to go to St Malachy's because St Malachy's was at a flashpoint in Ardoyne, which is where the Catholic and kind of North Belfast and Schenkel meet, and then Ardoyne is kind of patchwork. It's like Protestant Catholic, Protestant Catholic, Protestant Catholic, and it's kind of just a bit of a mental place. And then you come over here, and people are like, the polite way of asking you what you are is what football team do you support. And for years, for years, it was like taxis. Every time you got in a taxi, you heard my accent, and I had to be like Alloa, and they'd be, no, you can't support Alloa. And I was like, why? You have to support Rangers or Celtic. I support Alloa. It was because my cousin played for them. So that was always my excuse. But yeah, no, the dividers are there. I remember in primary school, used to do like we joint things with a Protestant school, and we used to go swimming, and they just turned in. It was meant to bring us together, just ended up fighting for the back seat.
That's mad that you can't go to saying that you've came for an environment where football is probably just as important as it is here. Maybe more important here. But I was working in the middle of Edinburgh a couple of months ago, and this guy from Edinburgh was dropping a set of steps off to me, and I got out and he heard Max saying, "You green or blue?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Kenny." Like, that guy, like, what are you interested in? Because football is, I like it, but nowhere near as much as like Gav or any of my friends. But doesn't he define you as a person with what team you support? And it just, 100%. I don't understand it, man. It must be a wee bit more. What's the word I'm looking for here? Pressured when somebody asks you, because everybody's going to expect you to support Celtic. Because you've got
it's kind of like like the other kind of experience I've had in it is like sub crawls over here. Like I love a sub crawl. I kind of try to do it annually, and I remember the first time I did it, I'd never really been in the south side of Glasgow. I'd lived in Shawlands, but I mean Shawlands was becoming like the mini West End, so it wasn't really anything apart from when there's a game at Hampden. But I remember getting off and going to this, like, the quayside, and just seeing a big Union Jack out of it, and immediately just in the back of my head going, shit. Like, I was like, because it sounds dramatic, but like when you grow up in Belfast, you know your area is based on your flags, because there's flags everywhere. It doesn't matter what kind of flag it is. You're in one place I had like the skull and crossbones for a while, and then there's a picture one time when they're taking down the Confederate flag in South Carolina, and it was like an Israeli flag, a Nazi flag, and a Confederate flag all in the same lamppost. What do you say? What are you trying to support here? Like, that Israeli flag doesn't go with that Nazi flag, and the Confederate flag probably doesn't do the same. And but so like when you see a flag, it means more. It's like we call them in Ireland, especially in the north, like flags. There's a couple of great comedians that do skits on it in this program called The Blame Game. And it's like, and this flag, and they don't like this flag, and because these people support this flag, that they put up this flag, and that's what it is. It's like, right, the nationalists support Palestine, well, we support Israel. That's kind of what it boils down to. It's tit for tat. The nationalists kind of supported the Confederate flag coming down. The Unionists put up the Confederate flag, and vice versa. So it works both ways, and no one's really innocent.
The whole thing's just fucking ridiculous, though, isn't it? Like when it boils down, you're like, what are you talking about?
That's like, I remember sitting with my mum, and like they grew up in Andersonstown in West Belfast, and my family owned a post office and owned a pharmacy and like a newsagent. And like my auntie, one of my aunties has a certificate for being robbed so many times at gunpoint. And like, but it just got robbed all the time, and that was robbed by the Ra. Like, I think there's a story that went on that like my granda was down the back of the house when they moved house, and someone came down and tried to steal his keys. And he's like, no, I'm not giving you my keys, because all they're going to do is burn out the car, put a car bomb in it or something like that. And he comes down effing and blinded into the kitchen, being like, why did none of you stop him? They're like, stop what? We didn't see anything. But just kind of, it's just a different world. It really is like, you grow up and bomb scares are the norm, and or as they call them now, security alerts, just to make it sound nicer for tourists. But it's kind of just that you grow up in school and you kind of know where you are, so you see that. So I was down in the south side of Glasgow, walked into this bar, and then like, Jesus, this is mad. I was in like the Red Lion, I was in the Grapes, and everyone's kind of staring at me because they're expecting something with my accent. But it was all grand, to be honest. No one really cares as long as you're not talking about it or causing trouble. Nobody minds. But there was one time I was in Nacho Novo's pub, and I went to the toilet, and this guy came in, and he was, don't know what age he was, right? But he looked worse for wear. Like, he looked like he'd been slashed a few times, and he just came in, and I like struggled to understand him a bit. But he started going, the gist of it was, you're so lucky. And I was like, why? It was because you get to grow up in Belfast with the bonfires in the 12th. And I was like, I was shitting myself. I was going, it's quality. I wasn't going to go, no, it's not needed.
It's a rare time. It's rare.
So it's funny, like, it's probably, it's very, very, very different from Glasgow, obviously, but I remember my old kind of group of mates, like every single one of them were Rangers fans, and I was the only Celtic fan. And I remember after a few old firms and stuff, like I would go into the Rangers club in Kirky Rangers club, have a drink. They all knew I was Celtic fans, but there was I'd never get one bit of bother. Like, it was just banter. Do you know what I mean? And that's I like that. I like the banter, but the whole.
Oh, I love the banter. Like, that's part of it makes it. Like, if you can take it well, it's good. As long as you don't take it too far. Some people take it real sour, and you find a lot of people don't really know what they're talking about, but just like to sing the songs, and that's fine. That's fine too, as long as you're not going to try to argue the case of the songs or say something you shouldn't be saying in certain places. But now the banter's brilliant, and what I find over here, and like crack with all in uni, like I had 50-50 mates, and we all have to rip the piss out of each other.
Yeah,
like I think I got called a terrorist after most old firm games, and I came in. Nice. I was like, you just take it, like it's good crack, like, you know, the guys are messing about and stuff like that, but like back home it's honestly not as bad as people make out. People worry about it, and it's just got so much better over the years. Like, Belfast evolved as a city. I actually can now see why people come to Belfast and visit it. I still don't really understand what the big fish. I still don't understand why we celebrate the Titanic like it's sunk, but I mean, I'm an engineer and I still don't get that one, but what everyone says is it was fine when it left us. So, or built by the Irish, sunk by the British. Like,
that's it.
So,
one thing, just while we're speaking, it just kind of came to my head. So, because of your accent and a wee bit of your looks, you've got a bit of Jamie Dornan about you. Did you get that quite a lot?
Funny enough, my mum actually was the first person to call that out, and it's like, what program are you watching? And she's like, The Fall, and I said, better just be The Fall.
No, the 50 Shades series.
Is that the 50 Shades of Grey?
She was talking to me earlier on. I said it's coming on this show, so you sent me the link later on, so she'll appreciate that. No, I get that quite a bit. I've actually been stopped in the street a few times, believe it or not, and I'm like, because they hear the accent and they're like, that must be him, and then I'm like, I just keep saying he's really lucky to look like me. But
agreed.
Don't know. Like, my mum was trying to get me to go for some kind of extra or something for him.
Stunt double.
Stunt double.
But no, like, I think his dad's a doctor, and from what I've heard, he was like I think he was my mum's doctor ages ago in Belfast.
Wow.
Like when she was pregnant with me.
So we switching on there.
That's what one of my mates in America said. I was like, we've got the same mannerisms, and in some scenes you watch him in the fall would do certain things the same way, and everyone's like, nah, he's your half brother. And that's all false, by the way, just in case my mum is listening to this. But no, I've got that a few times, like people messaging me and going, or no, stopping me in the street. And I was in Club Tropicana one night, and I was walking out, and these people are like, "Oh my God, it's Jamie Dornan!" And I didn't hear them, but one of my mates went up and goes, "Can you just leave him alone? He's just trying to have a good night."
Amazing.
But I mean,
amazing.
Take advantage of it. It was great when it was great when I was living in the States, and like the 14th of February came out Valentine's Day, and 50 Shades got released. I got way more interest when I was out in the bars.
I was going to say, I bet you it was all the females. It wasn't me guys, I'd imagine. But
there's a few guys as well, to be honest.
Fair enough.
When I started working in cocktail bars, I remember the most naive thing was this guy came up to me, and he came up and I'd made him a drink, and brunch, like he was not even like, people weren't steaming, and all the cocktail shakers are sitting at the front of the bar, and he goes, "This is for you." And tipping's massive in America, so I was like, "Oh, thanks very much, like really appreciate that, like hope you have a good day." And he's like, "No problem," and he just walked away and said, "Oh, great old fashioned," or something like that. I was like, "Great." She walked away, and I went over and I was like, "Oh, that's not money," and I opened it up, and it just said "great old fashioned," a big love heart, his name and his number.
Yes.
Right? And I'd never been given a number before in a bar or restaurant, and I'd worked in the hospitality industry for ages. So one thing I was like, geez, I'm looking good. And two, I was like, what the hell did I do with this number? Like, I remember sitting there kind of freaking out because the guy was still in the bar and I didn't really know how to act. And I was like, so I ran back into the bar and started asking all the girls, it's like, what do you do when you get a number? Like do I need to message him and tell him that like I didn't swing that way, or like I just like leave it? And they're all just burst out laughing, like, just leave it, you don't need to message him. And then he came back, but he came back like 4 weeks later and sent his mate up to talk to me, and I was like, this is freaking me out, just winking at me from the corner. But
Are you loving it? Did you love it though? Was it nice?
I did love it. I took it. I was like, Jesus. I was like, I'm going out tonight.
see, going back to, have you two watched The Fall?
I've not watched. I've watched the first episode, but
I'm a wee bit tired today, right? Because I went out for a walk. Right?
That was
it. No, we went to, me and a few of my mates went to walk up the Loch Ben Vollock or something like that, right? And we get lost. So bad, man. So the guy driving the digger was like, where he's going? We're like, up Ben Vollock, and he's like, just go straight down there around the corner. My mate's out with his phone checking maps. No, it's this way. He's like, 90% of people go down that way, follow the road, take your steps. No, my mate's like, it's this way. Have you done this? Nah. Cool. So this guy's working here for ages, knows where everybody goes, and we went the opposite way. 23 kilometres I've walked today, 32,000 steps.
Jeez,
bravo, mate.
That's impressive.
I know you can sense the energy, and you know I'm a wee bit and I knew you were a handsome bastard, so I put on a hat to hide imperfections. So my legs are absolute bits, and I'm pure raging. I mean, one of our pals nearly went after, he fell and slid all the way down the hill, and I'm like, grab him. And he's like, try to jump on him, missed him, and he was nearly going off a wee cliff. If he hadn't kicked his foot and grabbed a rock, man, he was going off a cliff.
Reality, aye.
It was like James Bond. See, they were talking about The Fall today. That's what, I was
wondering where that story was going there.
Aye.
It was Jamie Dornan up there.
They spoke about it, we popped by, like, he was lost as well. I think he was the 10%. But no, like, they were talking about it. It's not for me at all, man. It's a very, very dark TV show.
It was good though. It was good.
Even hearing about it doesn't even sound like it's good, man.
I remember watching the first episode, and I've watched the start of the episode twice, and it's freaked me out. And I got a wee bit, and he was doing these drawings in a lift, and I was like, like, it was really weird watching myself do this. I'm not that kind of guy. Like, I remember getting that, like, people compare me to him. It's like, what am I? Am I like this sex addict or a serial killer? Like,
happy medium,
can he not just do something else? But he's a big supporter of that shit London Guinness page, because I think he was on Graham Norton wearing one of their t-shirts, or give him a shout out.
Mad, man. I'd like a Guinness in London. A pint of Guinness in London must be
14 quid or something.
Man. Be extortionate. Like, I think I had one once, but it wasn't too bad. It was like, well, too bad for London. It was like 8 quid or something like that. But I mean, you can go into what Kitty O'Shea's used to be able to get it for $2.50 a pint in Glasgow, which is ridiculous.
Is Glasgow alright for Guinness then? Is it okay?
It's not too bad. There's certain there's actually, I think there's an account Glasgow Guinness, but like there's certain places that are decent for it. Like Malone's is good, although I suppose it just depends on the guy who's pouring it for you, and it depends how regularly the pubs get their lines clean, because you can get Guinness engineers to come out and like they actually clean the lines and look at it and how far your kegs are away from your taps and all that sort of stuff. But if someone doesn't pour it right as well, even though it's all marketing, it's definitely 100% makes it taste better.
Watching it.
It's not too bad.
Ginties?
Ginties is quality.
Ginties,
yeah, it's a good spot. Ginties, and then I used to work in a bar, McSorley's in town as well, and it was good. It was an Irish guy I worked for, and that he's now the bar manager at Malone's. So I'm sure Malone's will definitely be a good pint of Guinness when it reopens.
Nice. I look forward to that.
So how did you get into doing cocktails and stuff? Just mixing Guinness with whatever you could find.
I actually just did a video. I did a video with Andres and that for Paddy's Day. So just I've got a few comments about that. People not too happy. My family kind of like always in the hospitality industry. So like my uncle owned a pub in the village, and there's 3 pubs in the village, and so I was always about pubs. My granddad owned a hotel years, and his brothers owned a hotel years and years ago, before I can remember. And my mum was a flight attendant, so like as soon as I can remember, I've always just been in and around pubs, picking up glasses, washing dishes, and then kind of when I got older, my uncle sold the pub, but I got a job in his neighbour owned the other pub, so I got a job in there. I remember just kind of calling in sick to TK Maxx because I wanted to go work in the pub. So I did that from like until I moved away, and then every time I went home, I would work like Easter, Christmas, and summer. The one summer I went back. So I did that, and then that's kind of where I just learned and realised I really enjoyed working in the hospitality industry. And then that was just pulling pints, vodkas, cokes, mixed, like very basic, kind of your local. And then from there, I kind of took it. Uni, I did a bit of work here and there. I kind of had an interest in cocktails, and then I went over to the States, and I worked up in the Adirondack Mountains at a summer camp for like the super rich, like kind of like crazy money, like $6,000 for 3 weeks to send your kid there. Like owner cut about a Ferrari, and you had all these kids that were like celebrities, children, like you know How I Met Your Mother, Barney Stinson.
Legend, man.
His partners, so his Neil Patrick Harris, his partner's daughter went there, and like a few other people. I think who was somebody do a Toy Story. somebody really impressive though.
Jamie Dornan.
Jamie Dornan. Who was it? I think Woody. I think from Toy Story. Whoever that was.
Tom Hanks.
He's pure fate.
Tom Hanks? Is that Buzz? Oh no, that's no, it wasn't.
Woody.
Woody's that, but it was one of them anyway. And his kid went there, but I think it was someone to do with like who maybe wrote it or something like that. But anyway, I remember because his some mad like typical Hollywood story. I think him and his wife adopted a kid, and then when the kid turned 18, he divorced his wife and married the kid, and then had a kid with her, and then that kid was at the summer camp. I can't remember his name now. Is that Woody Allen? Is that someone?
Woody Allen, or maybe.
Woody Allen is somebody.
I don't know if that's
Tim Allen.
Tim Allen.
Tim Allen's like Christmas.
Is it? No, it wasn't Ethan Malone. I'm gonna have to. I've opened up Toy Story writers here.
Oh, writers, I go for writers.
Let's see if it is. Tim Malone.
I've watched
Tim Malone's in it, but it's not him.
I've watched it like 800 million times.
I've no idea, but a load of celebrities anyway went to it, and it came down. So I worked up there, then moved down to South Carolina, and studied out there, joined the fraternity and stuff like that. Kind of lived the American dream for a year, and then
fraternity. What was that? Don't blow over.
Hold on. Just it's Woody Allen and Mia Farrow. That was that's the story there. If you can see it. He married his daughter.
Son Yi.
Fucking weird. Anyway, sorry. Fraternity.
Yeah, so like, I went over there. I was working at that summer camp, so I taught like kids sports in an arts camp. It was kind of like Camp Rock. If that Disney film, if that's what the film was based on. I'm sure like one of those kind of camps. I think Disney asked the camp to film there, but they wouldn't close for the summer. Okay. But and then I think MTV came wanting to make a show about what counsellors get up to after dark, and they're like, we'll have no kids next summer if you let us do that. And then I moved down to South Carolina, which I'd never been to the South before. I'd been to like New York and San Francisco when I was younger, but the South is a different place. And like the South Carolina, I was like, right, they had the Greek villages, so all the fraternities, so you have all your Delta, Sigma, Alpha, Epsilon, and things like that, and they all have these massive houses. And I was like, geez, I want to have a look inside some of them. So you could rush a fraternity, and that's what the like approaching fraternities to join them is called rush. And it's over like a 2-week period or a week period. So you pay a fee of $25, and basically you have to put a shirt and like trousers on and go walk around all these houses and essentially speed date men and start chatting to them. And then like, if they like you, they get all the pictures and your information, and kind of like the films, and they go, oh, well, like that guy, will invite him back out, so you'll get invited to future stuff on. So I did that, went around, had a look at the houses. Some of them were insane. Some of the guys were arseholes. Some of them were actually pretty sound. Like, but
did your accent will just get you straight in?
And a few of them. I had this one was SAE, which are kind of notorious for like a party kind of fraternity, and in my head I was like, if I'm only here for a year, like I want to join something that's going to be like mental. And they put me aside in like the speed dating and told me to like follow this guy, and I had to follow him down around these like corridors in the house, and then like stand outside the door, and then when they knocked I had to come in or something. And I remember going in, and there's it's like these bunk beds, like it's like a sleepover. And the guys are sitting there with a bed sheet over the bunk bed so you can't see them, and they're sitting in the bottom bunk, and they've got a camera, and they're just go sit there, and I just sat there and started asking me questions, and then they heard my accent, and like the whole illusion of seriousness disappeared, and they just started like, oh, you're Irish, this is amazing, blah blah blah. So that was kind of odd, but then I had to fly home for some stuff and came back, and this one fraternity emailed me saying, look, we'd love you to come and chat to us, like, we know rush is over, but if you'd be interested. And it was a smaller one. The guys I think they had a massive fraternity, but it got knocked down to like 4 members and rebuilt up. That something happened. I think they had like 70 members, and then they did something which no one ever actually told me what it was. They did something stupid, and so I joined them, and like the 20 years or 16 pledges or something like that. I was one of them, just 12 members. So it wasn't as mad as like the movies make out in terms of the Russian process. Like you kind of go, and there was no hazing or anything. Not in ours anyway. There was hazing in other ones. Some of the stuff like you hear, you wonder if it's scare tactics or it's serious. But like I think the year after I left South Carolina, a guy died in Clemson, which was the other university. So made him go a 5-mile run and jump off a bridge into the river, and he didn't come back up. So like there is like people take it too far, so I was quite lucky in that. But what I liked about it was I was out there for a year, and I wanted to meet Americans and like make friends and stuff. So I was joining one with like 30 guys in it, so you actually got to know them. Whereas when you're joining the big ones, you've got 200 people there. You're going to know like 4 people, and then the rest of it's kind of you're just paying for the sake of being in this fraternity. So actually, we've got like mates been out to weddings and stuff over there, or been invited to weddings.
Wow,
still go back and forth, so it is quite good. And like even going back, like kind of suppose the fraternity thing was great. South Carolina is a bit tamer because the guys weren't, after what had happened to them, they weren't kind of going to go mad again. But then two of my mates flew over at the end of the time there, and we went for a road trip around America. So we drove from the East Coast to the West Coast, up the West Coast, back to the East Coast and down. And we just put on this international Facebook page for the fraternity saying, look, this is where we're going to be. This is the dates. Can anyone put us up? And of 45 days, we paid for 11 nights accommodation. It was unbelievable. Like one of the best.
Was that Route 66 you done?
No, so we did a bits of Route 66, but we like literally just drove. So started off in South Carolina, went to Orlando, met them in Orlando, and then drove to New Orleans, stayed in a hostel there, then went to Houston, and that was the start of the fraternities. And Houston, the guys, like I still message them on Instagram and all, like they're brilliant crack. Like one of my mates from East Kilbride was out in Houston working. I goes, I'll message these guys. They were brand new, and I was out there, and like they're inviting them to their family homes for barbecues, taking them to football games, like still chats away them. They're really, really great guys. But they came in and were like, right, you can stay with us, no problem. Went in, like, we're having a party for you tonight. And just had this massive frat party for us coming. Like, you're talking like, this is Texas, like Texan forever. The beer pong table is a Texan flag. And like, they had all the big massive fraternity letters outside. Like, it was mental. I remember waking up the next morning, standing outside and being like, something missing here, and we couldn't find the fraternity letters. Someone had stolen them, and they were like, you're talking like these are 8 foot tall, and someone had stolen them. We found them like 2 fields away. But and then like we stayed in another one in San Diego. It was a bit weird. Like we ended up leaving there, but we went up to San Francisco and Berkeley, and there's loads of Irish go to Berkeley and J1s visas in the summer, and I didn't know that, but I just turned up anyway, and these guys said we could stay with them. So this massive party going on, like something out of the films. You could see that the house is like something out of the films. And you go up, and I go to these guys sitting outside. I goes, oh, is Alex here? I goes, no, it depends who's asking. And I was like, oh, my name's brother Matthew from South Carolina chapter. He's like, oh, brother, how's it going? My name's Alex. I was like, all right. He's like, come on in. And he showed us and gave us a room and all. Like, but their house was just filled with Irish because they were renting out the room. So there was like 40 Irish people living in this house. I'm walking in, and S Club 7's blaring. People are dancing on the tables. Like, it was mental.
That's the most American story I've ever heard. Like, I'm brother fucking Alex. You know, it's like, depends who's asking. It's like something I film.
It's mental. And then like the next year I went back out there, and that's kind of where I started doing my cocktail bartending. I went and worked out as a J1, but I was still in touch with the guys I went to college with because it was back in South Carolina. Yeah. And they put me up, and they're like, oh, we've just put you in for a scholarship to go to this leadership institute. It's like, right. It's like, what's in Atlanta? We just kind of want you to come because you think it'll be good crack if you come with us. And I was like, great. Because I was like social convener, social chair, like organizing all the events for the fraternity. Basically because of the accent, like, the guys were taking advantage of it, and I don't blame them. But we went to Atlanta, and I hadn't met all these guys when I was traveling around the road trip. Brilliant crack, like turning up in this hotel, and you got put in random rooms, so you didn't get to stay with your mates because you meant to bond with your brothers essentially. So I was in this room, 2 double beds with 3 lads I didn't know, but they all knew each other. But there were no crack, like absolutely minus crack. And
minus.
I remember going to them, it's like, oh, you just want to come out tonight? And they're like, no, we can't. And I was like, oh, why? Are we meant to be doing something? They're like, no, we've just watched 21 Jump Street, so we're going to watch 22. And I was just like, I don't think I even said anything. I just think I walked out. The pure utter disgust, and then walked in their room.
That is like a scene for a movie. Like, have you seen Bad Neighbours?
Aye.
That's what I'd imagine like a scene would happen in that.
It was like, I was sitting there, I remember walking into, well, kind of like Bad Neighbours, I remember walking into, like, after that I walked up to my mates, some of my brother's room, and as I walked in, there was just these like 8 guys, and like 4 of them were from Texas, 2 of them were from Chicago, all guys that I'd met and that knew I was there. So they'd all find out where the South Carolina guys were, went to my room and were just waiting for me with a load of drinks. And they're like, yes, let's go out. Let's redo the road trip. And I was like, this is class. And all my brothers like, this is amazing. So that was brilliant. But you got away with Blue Murder with like the Irish accent. Like I remember carrying in everyone's booze because I knew no one would say anything to me about it. Because you weren't meant to bring alcohol into the hotel. You were meant to buy their own alcohol, and the event was meant to be dry. So I'm sitting there with this box of booze, and this guy comes into me and goes, "Are you at the fraternity event?" And I was like, in the lift. And I was like, aye. Like, you know, you're not meant to have alcohol here. And I was like, oh, I see, I'm Irish. And I just thought, I just didn't know that. And he goes, oh, you're Irish? And I was like, aye. He goes, that's amazing. My granddad was Irish.
Fucking you, that was coming.
He just goes to me, he just goes to me, oh, have a good time while you're here. Like,
we've had our last 3 guests have been from America. 2 from LA and 1 from Texas. And every time we went on, it's like I've got like my third fucking cousin's grandfather was like 1/3 Scottish or Irish.
I love it.
It's fucking brilliant.
They proper like love their ancestry and look it up so much because there's not really much history out there, but everyone's Irish out there, like everyone. But the worst things are you get called English. See, when you're out on a night out and someone goes, "Oh, you're English," you're like, oh, my mate from Bathgate got called English one night, and the woman refused to call him Scottish. He's like, "No, but I'm Scottish." It's like it's the same thing, and he was just.
See the amount of times when I travelled out, we get called Irish.
Aye.
Just give up eventually.
Cool. You just have to agree. That's not as bad. I don't mind getting called Scottish, but if someone called me English, I'd
don't a vibe. That's shit.
No.
Getting called English.
It's funny though, because like any American who's got like one of their siblings or fathers or grandfathers have got like the slightest tinge of ginger to they're like, oh yeah, Irish, like.
And then they get called Irish. The amount of people I've came across with the nickname Irish, and none of them are Irish. Like, at that speed dating for fraternities, I remember going in and the guy sitting there, oh, Irish, this is an Irish play or an Irish Rushy. And I was like, oh, where are you from in Ireland? He's like, this broad American accent. I was like, so, like, your man Irish? No. It's just so why you called Irish? Exactly that reason. Oh, I had ginger hair. Like,
I had.
But that was like, that was it's pattern. Like it was the worst, honestly. But that fraternity, you needed to have an annual income of your parents of over $1 million or something like that to get into that fraternity. Which just like I was sitting there like my mum earning like $12,000 a year. Like if I'm getting in here, you're gonna have to pay for me.
But this sort of caliber of accent and proper Irish, no just.
That's it. Like the guys, to be fair to the guys in the fraternity I joined, like they helped me out a lot with the costs and stuff. Like I didn't pay a lot, if anything really, other than a couple of initial joining costs.
A few beers. That was it.
Like just come out, organize stuff, and promote it. But they were great guys. Like and a few of them come over and stay on my sofa over here, nice. to see this side of the world now. But so I kind of got into cocktails over there. So I moved out and. I remember I was going out with a girl out there, and I'd got a visa for the summer, and I'd been out living there since February, and I had to go back home and come back out, and I got this visa, and I was looking for a job. With any job will do, but I'd like to bartend because I enjoy bartending. It's the first bar I walked into is this one called Bourbon of Columbia, and it's kind of like this kind of high class. And I thought, like, if I'm going to make tips, I need to be in a bar that's people are spending money in, not like dollar beers, because people don't tip on $1 beer. So walked in, spoke to Madison, who's the girl on the door, like the setting your tables and stuff like that, the host, and she got the manager and started speaking to him. He goes, "Have you ever made a cocktail before?" He goes, "No, but I can pour a pint." And he's like, "I'm sure I can learn how to make a cocktail." He's like, "Oh, okay. So just give me your information." And he gave me a number. He called me that night. He goes, "Can you come in and do a trial shift?" And I was like, "Yeah, 100%. I'll see you tomorrow." And I found out later, speaking to Madison, because I'm still quite friendly with her. And she said to him after I left, "You've got to hire him." And he goes, "Are you kidding me on? The gay guys and middle-aged women will love him. Of course I'm hiring him." Right. And that was why I got the job.
Yeah.
So as long as I could hold my own behind the bar and just pick up cocktails, and unfortunately for the bar manager, but fortunately for me, she broke her leg. So I had to kind of get thrown in at the deep end, which is kind of where I've always enjoyed being when I'm working. So picking up stuff, and I was doing kind of bar backing, getting stuff ready, and then making cocktails, and then moved on to a bit of serving later on in it, just because you got a wee bit more tips there. But that's kind of where I got into it. And then I came back from there, and that was a specialty bourbon bar. So talking like 400 bourbons behind it. The food was amazing, but it was brilliant. And then came back and made a few cocktails here, but then always in the back of my mind, really enjoyed cocktail bartending. And when I came back, I worked in a wee bar in Glasgow called the Park Lane, which is beside Central Station, beside the one that looks like the German.
Beer hall, no?
Alpine Lodge.
Oh, right,
that's what it is. It's like literally on Hope Street. If you go you come out of Central Station at the side door, where the Pure Gym and the SSE and Nando's is, and you walk down there. And it was this hole in the wall, man. The place was mental. Like served £1 vodkas and Monday to Sunday to Thursday, and 150 vodkas Friday and Saturday in Central Station beside Central Station with no bouncer. Like it was just like the amount of stuff that I probably shouldn't talk about. What's that?
Remember Driftwood used to do
79 pence.
Aye, they're in Firewater as well.
That's right.
Driftwood, I'm sure Driftwood probably will still do 79p. Like that's where I used to work as a promoter for the garage. That's where we started our shifts years ago. That's kind of what I went into rather than bartending when I was at uni over here, because I can't be arsed staying up late working in clubs and stuff. So I just did PR, and she finished at like 11. So I was one of those, or 12. I was one of those people like, "All right, guys, where are you going tonight?" But it was great. You got paid like £7 an hour, and you were finished at 12. You could go out after it. So, it was that bar was mental. Like the stuff that went on in it, and
is it still open? Obviously, it's not open.
It's not open now, but it's still open. I think the guy who owned its brother came in and started taking a bit more care of it. But it was mad. I ended up walking out because the amount of fights and people have had to throw out and stuff. I was like, I'm not risking getting stabbed here or hitting someone, defending myself, and then me not having a bouncer card or anything like that, and just getting in trouble. So I just ended up leaving. But that's when I started working in McSorley's. But it was class. Like I remember I worked with a guy called Mark there. It was brilliant crack. Like the guys, see in the weekdays, the regulars were unreal. It was like an episode of Still Game. Like it was class. Like you had one guy, can't remember his name now, but you give him 20 quid. You give him 20 quid on a Sunday, and on Wednesday he'd come in with a big thing of like butcher meat, because he worked in the butchers. Right. And he'd have you give him 20 quid, you get 5 kilograms of chicken, 2 steaks, a big thing of Lorne sausage, like 2 steak pies. And 20 quid, you'd be getting. It was never the same thing, but you just got all this food. It was brilliant. I used to love Wednesdays because I'd be sitting there like, right, what am I getting this week? Like,
where's Jack? Where's Jack?
Hi, Jack. He's not come in. He's taking my 20.
Him and Victor are doing it.
In the Alvin Lodge next door. But nah, it was good. But then kind of from that, I kind of just wanted to do them. And I've always had this idea of running a pop-up bar and doing like a pop-up. And I've seen a few people doing it now over lockdown, but I kind of, it's always been in the back of my head. And then lockdown happened, I got furloughed. And I was just like, right, I'm going to start this cocktail page and use it as a side brand, and then launch a cocktail bar off it. But then kind of a few things have changed, and I'm just using the one brand in now going forward. But that was kind of where it all started in terms of putting it out there to the public and saying like, look, I can make cocktails, and this is how you do it. But the main aims being is I've seen there's so many cocktail bartenders on Instagram and the internet, and like, see when I start seeing stuff like clarification, or like you have to do all these things, like you need to swim 2 oceans, climb a mountain, grab 2 leaves, roast them underneath the moonlight, and grind them to make a syrup for this cocktail. I'm just bored. I'm never going to make it. I'm sure it tastes great, right? But see, unless you're working in a bar which is making hundreds of them a night, you're never going to make that at home. So my kind of ethos is to make cocktails as accessible as possible, because they are easy. Like when you make a cocktail, the one fear you need to get over, and it's something that I struggled with when I was in South Carolina, was always worrying about, oh, people might not like this. But at the end of the day, you're making the cocktail, so you own the flavor. It's not every old fashioned is not going to taste the same way as every martini is not going to taste the same.
Yeah.
So you can ask people how they prefer it, but ultimately they're getting an old fashioned and they'll drink it because they're like, well, I've got an old fashioned. Same in town. So that's kind of what kind of would stop me making them in the past. I'd be like, oh, I don't know if this is right, or I don't know if this will taste good for everyone. So then now I'm kind of like, well, it does taste good. You make the measurements yourself. I want to be able to walk into Tesco and look at my cocktail recipe and go, I can pick up everything here. If I can't get it, I can get it on Amazon. Or if it's juice, I can get it somewhere else. Or like, it's all within reason. You're not having to do these mad processes that people just simply won't do. And it seems to have worked quite well so far.
Yeah, definitely. I've had a good snip through your page, and I've got a few ideas. So
yeah,
but
it's
we've got
what's the event? Hold on, mate.
On you go for it.
Camden. There's
you
an
can't
event
take your half.
Mate, if I take my hat off, you'll not see me, man. Oh, Marilyn Manson here. Some sort of it's like a pop-up event that's happening at the SECC. It's like skee ball and like American games and like cocktail bars that popping up. Have you heard of this? No.
Is it that? I've seen a few, but I never. There's one that's like the Big Eat, isn't there? And there's the one down. It's not really a pop-up though.
That's next to your work. Basically, it's in Pacific Quay, the warehouse.
Okay.
Pacific Quay. That's pretty good.
There's one happening at ACCC. Paula was telling me about, and I'm like, she's like, or is this thing happening at ACCC at some point? And I was like, that sounds amazing. It sounds like a pure different night out. You go to ACCC, everything's under one roof, and you can go and do like American style type of games and get some cocktails and like the wee food trucks and stuff. Because that's the same idea that's already happening at the Quay that I've just never heard about.
It's mostly food, isn't it? Like these ones.
Like there's that one in Central as well called Platform. And it's kind of the same thing, like food truck style food, but that sounds quality. Because see, if they had all those like arcade games and all that you get in America, like the skee ball and stuff like that would be quality crack.
Beer pong.
Beer pong. I can't play beer pong after being in a frat. I get too competitive over the rules. Like, you're not playing it right. Just leave. Get raised.
What is the rules to beer pong?
Oh, there's so many. I can't even remember them. But it's like your elbow has to be behind the table. If the ball goes in and it bounces into another one, it's 2 cups. But some people don't play that rule. Or if you bounce it and it goes into a cup, it's 2 cups. Or you can shout, like, if there's a cup by itself, you can shout island, and if you get it in, then it's 2 cups, and all the. Then if you get it in, there's so many, it gets really intense. Like, and I've never been very good at it.
Did you just play that when you get in a cup that team has to take like an item of clothing off? No.
No, I can't comment.
I can't comment. I can. We done it in Melbourne. There was a Monday night. Everybody who wanted to play put their name down, and the winners got like their bar tab paid for them.
Oh, big class.
Every Monday night in the hostel. It's always these same 2 guys that always won it though, man. They were shit hot.
That's why they fucking stayed there,
Aye. So,
it's some people are brilliant at it.
It's such a good game though.
Oh, it's good crack. Like, it's really good crack.
Matthew, we've got it's not really a challenge for you, but it's a challenge for us.
It's not a challenge for no, it's definitely no.
Kenny's got a surprise for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to, I've got a bit of an injury, so my missus is going to make my cocktail for me, but we're going to make a cocktail and then we'll describe what's in it, and you can let us know, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, how it might sound. Obviously we can't taste it because we're not there, unfortunately, but we'll give it a go and see how you like it. But while we're thinking about that, what's your favourite cocktail, if you could pick one?
Oh, what's your favourite cocktail to make?
Go for that then.
Favourite cocktail to make in terms of people's reactions. So I kind of always gauge my cocktails and what people think of them. There's one I had I was out for work in the Village Hotel, I think it is in town.
That's where we work.
Dakota. Oh, is it? And it was the rhubarb,
right.
and it was magic. I said, I got to learn how to make this. but it just tastes like rhubarb and custard Haribos.
Oh man!
So it's
squishies. I do my day.
They're magic. Like, so it's a lemon juice, April, then like rhubarb and ginger gin. Like, you can use the liqueur from Edinburgh Gin or the one at Aldi or Lidl. And then I always put in a shot of another gin just to up the strength on it.
Mm-hmm.
I use Hendrix and things, but
like a style,
because I like see people going out like, "Oh, I'll have an Edinburgh Gin." Like, it's not gin; it's Edinburgh Gin liqueur, so it's like 15%, and you're paying for gin prices. But they got around that quite well because they call it Edinburgh Gin as their brand, and then say liqueur underneath it. Mm-hmm. But I work as an engineer in the distillery, so like we kind of see all the stuff, and working in whiskey and working in gin and Irish whiskey over the past kind of 4 years, you kind of start seeing the games people play, they market their stuff.
Marketing's amazing, isn't it? Marketing can really
it's brilliant.
Before you know, you've spent loads of money on very little things.
Yeah, and they do some really good things. But like I said, Edinburgh gin, and then what I say, you can use rhubarb bitters and an egg white, but you don't really need the rhubarb bitters. You can make it without it, but just shake it and then strain it, and it's just unbelievable. Like, it's one of the ones it's probably my most common drink I make for my mates. When they come in there, I say, "Oh, can I have a rhubarb? Can I have a rhubarb?" In terms of drinks for me, like I like anything with like tequila, to be honest. But I love, there's Blue Dog or Top Dog in town.
Blue Dog, yeah,
Blue Dog.
That's a cocktail bar as well, isn't
it? They do a Clockwork Orange, and it says on the menu it takes 8 minutes to drink. And I'm a massive Terry's Chocolate Orange fan. Like, I think in the first week of lockdown I had 11 in 7 days, and so I had this, and it's really neat though. It's a very strong bourbon drink. I think they use brown sugar. I can't remember what else they use. Probably some Mozart kind of dark chocolate liqueur, and some sort of orange essence or maybe Cointreau. But it's brilliant. Like, so I quite like those drinks, like sitting sipping on something that's quite neat and strong, where you can really taste the alcohol and the complexity. But a lot of people don't like that. It's like when people think of a martini, they think of a porn star martini now. Whereas a martini is gin and vermouth and a bit of bitters. Like, it's strong, and it's like I did a bit of work with a company recently, and it should be coming out in the next few weeks. But they're so confident in their own spirit that they're like, "I want you to make a martini for it, because we're confident in our spirit coming through. We don't want to cover it up with sugar. We don't want to cover it up with anything else. We just want to be able to drink the spirit." So that in itself is a challenge, because then a martini is a very simple drink. Like, it's a couple of ingredients. Or if it's a Churchill martini, it's just gin while you look at a bottle of unopened vermouth and you stir it, because you just drank gin straight. Like, that was like, so it's and there's another one I made. I used to have it in the States, a whiskey smash, and it's lemon juice, mint, sugar, and whiskey, and you put it over crushed ice in like a summer day. It's so refreshing. A couple of my mates that would be whiskey drinkers would have that. I kind of use Irish whiskies because they're a bit sweeter, because they're triple distilled. When you distill something, you want more. You get copper contact with the copper stills, which takes out like sulfur in it, and then that just kind of changes the flavor. So when you do it 3 times in whiskey in Ireland, I think Auchentoshan does it as well. Triple distilled their whiskey.
I'm pointing as if you know where I stay.
That's the one I just finished that last night. Actually, Kerry, that was the one I was drinking last night. Auchentoshan.
I think it's triple distilled. It's grew on me, like, since I started working in the whiskey industry. I remember going with the interview process, and you had a free bar and all in the house, which is probably a part of the tasting. They took you up to the Highland distilleries, and I remember sitting there like doing the tasting and not liking it at all, but being like, "I better drink this because I'm getting interviewed here." So I'm sitting like when people are watching, so it's just like necking it, and I was like, "Oh," but it's grown on me now over the kind of years. Like, certain number of our brands that we have are fantastic whiskies.
It's kind of like everything though, isn't it? Because I remember forcing myself to drink coffee because I love the idea of it. I didn't like it. I love it now, but when I first tried it, I was like, "Whoa." Same with whiskey, I was kind of like, "Fuck."
Once you find a whiskey, Yeah, that was essentially why I started drinking coffee, just to keep myself awake. But when you find a whiskey you like, it's a good entrance into it. And then like a lot of people, like kind of my favorite whiskeys, I really like Lagavulin 16. And it's a really nice kind of Islay whiskey, so it's peated. I really enjoy it. But then I like every other whiskey which is kind of finished in portwood or sherry casks. So the Glenfiddich 15-year-old, for example, is really kind of budget friendly whiskey, but is really impressive. Really nice and easy to drink. Or Tomatin 14. And then if you go up and like when we go out for company events, like Balvenie Portwood 21-year-old, but it's like £20 a dram. So I'm never going to drink that. Like not myself anyway, unless a business.
Unless the company are paying, definitely.
We can't. They're trying to market whiskey differently now, aren't they? They're trying to make it more easy to drink, and they might use it in cocktails, and
that's it.
Encouraging mixers and stuff that way, so that everybody can kind of get into it, like an entry, like you said. So then you would go, "Oh, that was really nice." Try a different one, and then start not diluting it as much.
Well, that's like see, like Monkey Shoulder's a brand like that, which is made for mixing. It's a blended whiskey, but it's made out of blended malts, so it's not just like your typical blend, which might have like grain and all sorts of whiskeys in it, which is an art in itself, because you've got to make that bottle of White Mackay taste the same. But you might not have the same whiskies to put into it, and you've always got to have the same consistency. So I think that's incredible. But that's why these people get paid big bucks to do it. But then you've got Monkey Shoulder, which is Bayside malt whiskey, so it's all malts, there's no grain, and it's made for mixing. And there's a few others, like in Tullamore in Ireland.
There's my
you go to Tullamore.
Pure glamorous assistant, that.
in Tullamore in Ireland, you go out and like everyone's drinking Tullamore Dew. Doesn't matter if you're a guy, girl, anything. Like see after like a few pints are had, Tullamore Dew and cloudy apple juice. You can get it in Tesco, I think, for £16 a bottle when it's on offer. And like some of that cloudy apple juice with ice, it's brilliant. I've actually done another version of it called a Tapple Dew 2.0, which I made for Paddy's Day, but I didn't like my photographs, so I haven't posted it yet, so I'm going to reshoot it and then post it again. But it tastes great, like, if I don't say so myself. I do say so myself.
Right, Kenny, what's your cocktail?
There's Nate.
Cocktail.
I'm going. You show yours.
Okay.
It's going to take about.
I'll judge you while I'm drinking my cold espresso.
Nice cup.
It's the fanciest ever. Don't forget a pinky. There you go.
I think it's a pure wee Denby cup my mum got me.
Right, that's I've not got any cocktail glasses around, so it's not going to look the best.
Don't worry about that.
But it's a bubblegum daiquiri.
Right.
So let me get this right. So now the brand's Monin that do all the sugar syrups.
Yeah.
So it's bubblegum Monin, apple juice, crushed ice, and I think that's it, to be fair. Something else is in it. But it's actually really, really nice. I had a bubblegum daiquiri in TGI's, I remember. And it's just that pure, strong bubblegum flavour. It was like so sweet. And ever since then, I loved that. And then we tried it tonight, and it's pretty nice.
It's good. I might have to give that a go myself. And, so bubblegum morning, apple juice, crushed ice, and rum.
No, and gin. Sorry, gin. Gin, yeah.
What gin did you use?
Co-op special.
See, that's the other thing too. When you're making cocktails, you can use gins that are like, especially cocktails like that where you're masking it with sugar and stuff. You can use lower end gins, but like some of the stuff, like I've done a lot of work with Smuggler's Gin, which is owned by Malone's sister company, and like you really want to taste the gin in it, so it's worth spending that money because while it is more expensive, it's more premium gin. You do get the taste out of it, but then see when you're making something like I can't even think, like even like that rhubarb I was talking to you, when you're putting everything else into it, why would you spend money on a really expensive gin when you're putting all these other things into it? Exactly. I'm gonna have a go at that. So bubblegum moan, apple juice, crushed ice, and gin.
Go for it.
And
get a spin on it.
The rhubarb. What kind of gin do you put? Obviously the rhubarb gin. Is it just any rhubarb gin?
So you can get like the one everyone knows is Edinburgh gin, but it's like £18 a bottle sometimes. So it's kind of why would you spend that money on it for something that's 15%?
Yeah.
But Lidl and Aldi do this one's a Quartus. It's rhubarb and ginger liqueur.
Oh, I've had that. My mum.
So if you get it, I think it's like £12. Or what you can do is on that. So where I get a lot of my bevies from is Amazon Daily Deals, and I just check every day the beer and wine and see what stuff comes up. Edinburgh gin sometimes comes up on it for £25 a bottle,
right,
for the full strength Edinburgh rhubarb and ginger gin. So you could use it and use a double shot of it.
Yeah.
But if you did that, and then I use Hendrick's. Hendrick's is my go-to gin.
Hendrick's is beautiful.
It's a pure good gin, but in it, so
it's just a really premium gin. Just the way it's distilled and everything that goes into it is fantastic for the price point on it. I think on Amazon you can get it for like £25, £26 a bottle. Some places rip the arse out, it's like 35, but
£30. What's the bottle that you use? Is that a 75 CL or is it a litre?
70 CL mostly in Scotland. But yeah, so I use that, and then but I'm really like not just even shouting this out because I've done work for them, but the Smuggler's gin's really good, really light and refreshing. But so if you're ever in Malone's, they'll start stocking it behind the bar when they reopen. So it'll definitely be. You should definitely give it a shot.
Definitely give it a try.
And then the other one, if you're ever in Gin 71, is like Isla Harris gin. It's the one that's like it's a bottle.
Fancy.
It's a pure fancy bottle, but it's all distilled in Harris. So it's about keeping jobs on the island. But the bottle, people make lampshades and all out of it. But you get it in Gin 71 and a few other bars in Godolphin's and things. And they it's got like sugar kelp or something in it, which I think it's a seaweed, but it tastes pure sweet, and you have it with grapefruit. It's
a pure science in it, man. It's such a science.
It is. But I think people get intimidated by it. They're like, oh, there's all this. I'm like, see, at the end of the day, if you put something in a glass and you like it, then it's a cocktail. And it's something that you like. Not everyone's going to like it. It's the same as whiskey. People look down the nose at you if you mix whiskey, and you're like, well, if that's how you like drinking it, then drink it that way.
What's up with that?
Like, don't get me wrong. See, if you've got like £1,000 dram and you mix it with Coke, like you're kind of just wasting your time. You're wasting your money. Like, if that's what you want to do, it's your money. You should at least try it first and like see what it actually tastes like. Because if I ever order a gin, if I've never had it before, or any spirit, I always ask for it to come. If it's not in a cocktail, they come separately and then with the mixer, so I can try the spirit just to see what it tastes like and see the complexities in it. But then the other thing is, people do a lot of waffle. See, the whole industry, like as a whole, alcohol is waffle. Like, I'm guilty of it myself sometimes. You kind of just talk for the sake of talking, when in reality people don't know. I mean, see, when you look at taste notes and whiskies, like, who is making them up? Because I don't taste half the stuff on them ever.
Thank fuck you said that, because any time that has ever happened, like even my girlfriend a few years back had a wine tasting event. There was like a guy came to the house and basically just selling wine to a bunch of pissed girls, but and it was like, what can you taste and stuff, and they were saying you could taste this and you could taste this, and I'm like, maybe wine's a bit different from spirit, but I can taste the differences, but I don't know what the differences are.
Exactly.
It's just fucking wine. It's red. I don't know.
Like, in my work, we do a lot of, like, we get the option to do nosing. So we obviously, like, back in the day, you could drink on site, but you can't do that anymore. So you have to nose the whiskey, and you have to nose different smells and see if it's off. So there's certain smells that you should smell in your whiskey, and you nose it, but you have to do your test, and you have all these different wee sample jars. Like, one smells like fish, and you have to match it with the whiskey. It's not like fish to pass, and I've done it a few times. I think I've passed it twice, but I've never continuously went and did the nosing. But at the same time, like, it was, for me, in my brain, I was like, this is a process of elimination. If I can get all the ones that obviously smell bad, then I'll at least guess the rest of them. So it's like, I'm not going to pick up on stuff like that normally. But there is people like that. I shouldn't be saying this. Like, there is people that can do it, like the likes of the master blender and the businesses and the apprentice blenders, and there is some people whose noses are better and are more tuned to it. But at the same time, when you get all these brand ambassadors and bartenders that pretend like they know everything. You're like
salesmen, and they're just salesmen.
Just like
there's hints of fucking oak and wood, and you're like,
it's kind of like justifying that they're this like greater level, and the guy that pours pints, and sometimes that's experience, and sometimes it's not. Like what I want to do is go to people's homes and provide experiences and teach people about cocktails and do it. Then eventually lead that on to doing it in events, like kind of almost like that wine guy, but coming in and doing parties, doing like Airbnb experiences and things like that. And then kind of teaching people, get master classes, and then from there moving on and maybe doing bigger events like outdoor fairs and stuff like that, or festivals, and just making it accessible, because
that'd be class. Actually, that'd be good.
Like people shouldn't be intimidated by cocktails.
Am I right in saying that when you're making, in the process of making whiskey, which it takes a lot longer to make, you can make gin? Is that right?
Yeah.
And that process a lot shorter. And that's how like some whiskey brands are making gin.
Aye. So basically, like Isle Irish Gin, they're making whiskey. They're very secret squirrel about it. Like I think they've released the name and things like that, but they've got whiskey in the background. Because whiskey in Scotland under Scottish Whiskey regulations, the Scottish Whiskey Act, it has to be aged for 3 years and 1 day in an oak cask. It's very similar to Ireland, which is just a wooden vessel, oak-like. So basically, whiskey and gin are separate processes, but quite similar. So if you run to make whiskey, in like the simplest way of thinking of it is you've got malt, you've got cereal, malted cereal, you've got water, and you've got yeast. You mill your cereal like your barley, you add it to hot water, and then all the sugars come out, and then you put it in a vessel, like a fermentation vessel, and you make beer by adding yeast to it. At that point, it's about, you leave it for maybe 60 to 72 hours, and could be longer, could be shorter, depending on the distillery. You've got about a 10% kind of brewer or distiller's beer. Doesn't taste nice, but it's an alcoholic beer. You then take it and you put it in the first still called the wash still, and you distill it up. So you basically boil the kettle there, and then anything that comes off the top of the still, that's it goes on to your next stage. You'll make different cuts on that. So like the first part, like maybe the first 200, 250 liters, you won't take. But then after that, you'll take the rest, and at the end, you won't take the end. But that first bit and the end bit that you're not taking, you'll recycle that and put it back in the next time, because there's alcohol there to be had. Then everything moves forward into the last still, and you distill it up, and essentially you get your spirit, and then you put it in the cask, and then 3 years later it comes out and it's whiskey. But in the same time, people make gin. They do the same thing. You can do gin in different ways. If you're going to distill it, you want to put it in a still. So it doesn't need to go through 2 stills, although it could do if you wanted it to. But you can either fill the still with botanicals that you want your gin to taste like, and add in kind of vodka on with neutral spirit, grain neutral spirit, and just boil it up. And then gin will then taste like those botanicals. Or you can leave neutral spirit just to steep in botanicals and then take it out and call it gin. It's not distilled gin though. And then there's other ways you can vapor infuse botanicals. But basically, most distilleries will make gin, because you can make gin and sell it the next day. Whereas you can make whiskey, but you can't sell it for 3.5 years or 3 years in 1 day.
Wonder where the 1 day, where did the 1 day come from?
I think it's like, I don't really know where I think it's to make sure it's 3 days, 3 years, because if if you did it on the morning and it was put in a barrel at night, 3 years, I don't know. Some people say that like Irish whiskey's 3 years and Scottish whiskey's is 3 years in 1 day, and other people say Scottish whiskey's 3 years and Irish whiskey's 3 years in 1 day. And the argument is, or the banter is, it's like, well, ours is 1 day better than yours, type of thing. But I kind of think that's probably just an old wives' tale. But
what you were saying there was like, you can put anything in a glass, and if you like, well, mix it and call it a cocktail. So I'm assuming this is what Kerry's done.
Aye.
By the way he was explaining it. So
the way I was trying to put it off, he'd done this, because remember, I've been out since 6:30 this morning.
You've not got the ingredients.
Clambering hills, getting lost, sore legs,
meeting Jamie Dornan.
Bumped into big J-Bo. Worried for my life.
You got a vodka and brew or something, is it?
Oh no, it's just a wee cider, to be honest. Just a wee.
Yeah,
And I feel really bad because you're such a good mixologist, and I don't know what mix the beer and the cider.
Aye, go try it.
Just a wee punishment, a wee fucking don't be a
What is that called? Is it
snake bite?
Something like a snake bite.
God.
Is that Corona?
I nearly called you fucking Jamie there, Matthew. Matthew had his pen out as well, ready to write. Cider.
I'm gonna write down there. I'm gonna make that bubblegum daiquiri tomorrow, or whenever I can get bubblegum syrup from.
The Alaska raspberry, wild strawberry, and elderflower.
Nice.
One full can. 2 midfies out of that for you.
What? How many ice cubes?
No, you don't need any ice cubes. No ice cubes. There's none here. We're just winging it. And then at least the neck and the start of your Corona, and that's
how's it taste?
I don't know. I'm scared to taste it. It's not the worst. Tastes far worse. I'll put beer in. Still quite sweet.
Fucking hell. Oh, good effort. You done what you could. There's
a bottle of Prosecco, and we've got fresh orange, and that's that a mimosa. If you have fresh,
mimosa, yeah.
I've got that, but I'm not opening a full bottle of Prosecco and then drinking that. Jesus.
No,
because you will drink it.
I will drink it. Aye. There was a podcast we done a few weeks ago when Rangers won the league. So Paul had been gifted a few, and I said, "Can I have one of them to pop on the podcast for Rangers winning the league?" She's like, "Aye, if you want." So I've opened it and I've been twisting, the way the cork. I'm twisting the cork, not wanting it to fucking fly off, man. And it fucking popped, and I shit myself, and there's a big cock mark on the screen.
Actually, I posted it on Instagram, Matthew.
Aye.
It's quite funny.
So apologies, man. That's a poor effort.
Oh, right there.
Back home.
Hold up your cocktails there. I'll get a photo for Instagram.
Aye. Mine just looks well better than yours.
At least I'm getting fucking ice.
We've only got wine and like champagne flutes. We don't have actual cocktail glasses.
No, they don't.
I was a bit gutted with that, man.
To be honest, I got quite lucky with mine. I went in and was looking to buy some, and this company just sent me loads of samples. So that's where most of my glasses came from.
Fucking hell!
Because I had a couple of glasses I bought myself, and then they just sent me this box. So it was just like 30 glasses. So it was Galgorn back home. It was like, it makes it look so much better, but at the same time, it tastes fine in whatever class it's in.
Aye.
Especially beer and raspberry,
cider,
wild strawberry, and premium cider.
I was going to ask your favourite cocktail, Kenny, but is that it? Aye, is it?
This is it, mate. This is
Kenny special.
Aye. I was trying Kenny, mate.
Kenny's bite.
Kenny's fucking stupid idea. That's what it's called.
What's your favourite cocktail, Ken?
What is my favourite cocktail? I like an espresso martini. Is that right?
Oh, aye. Yeah,
like that. I really enjoy coffee, man.
It's a strong drink. You can do so much with it. Like you could add Cointreau to it as well, and like a bit of chocolate syrup, or make it taste like a chocolate orange one. Or you could do like salted caramel. Or I did one recently for the guy who fights at the Grip House, Reece McEwen. He started a brand called Connaughton Coffee, and I was making one with his coffee, and his nickname in the Grip is called Fudgy. So I added like fudge to it and salted caramel caramel bun and syrup, and it was brilliant. Tasted fantastic.
Could you do something with my missus loves After Eight? Tastes like mint and chocolate. So you could put a wee bit of mint in there, and that would be
100%. Yeah. So what you could do is get creme de menthe, which you can get on Amazon. I've seen it in a few like kind of off licenses.
Amazon, man. You're
brand ambassador.
Yes, so is man.
Me and Jeff Bezos are like besties, man.
Is that why
he's come to me for cocktails?
Because it's you and him. You're going to get a cocktail brand going. I knew it.
Honestly, it's just so much easier because I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, Joe, just buy that. I'll just buy that. No, it's like a gift to myself every time. It feels better than picking up Tesco's. But you could add creme de menthe to it. I did one recently, an Irish coffee with creme de menthe, and put the creme de menthe in the cream.
I love, is that what's the one? I like a cappuccino with Baileys. What's that? Is that
we used to just call it a Baileys coffee, but it's it just tastes.
That's tasty.
It is.
Well, Matthew, my favourite alcoholic coffee. I love an Irish coffee, but have you ever tried? I think it's just an Italian coffee, but coffee with amaretto or Disaronno in it.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, that's amazing. So good.
Amaretto sours and all those sorts of things are brilliant. But I'm a big fan of coffee cocktails because you can do so much of the coffee beans and stuff if you want to get really fancy. But even the other thing people always say to me is, I don't have an espresso machine. I'm like, well, just use instant coffee. See, even that, like the fancier one, the Azerica or whatever you call it, like the powder.
Pods.
Azura, something like
Azura, like the wee silver tub. If you use it, because it gives it cream, and you just make sure it's hot and it's grand. But the wee pods is what I use, just because I've got one on machines. But
so, did you ever do any like the competitions for making cocktails? You know, like the TGI guys, but are they just more like showing off?
I've never done them. It's not saying I wouldn't do one, but I've never. I think kind of before when
fucking flips and tricks and.
I did a course actually in the Penance Factory, and the guy did it. David, he's brilliant. David Monaghan on Instagram. It's a South African guy, and he's like a flair champion in Scotland. And some of his shots are amazing. He's a great guy as well. So he taught a cocktail class. Like I went and got my cocktail mixology certificate. But he does all that, and I don't have the hand-eye coordination for that. Like I can throw a punch, but that's about it.
Well, that was that
you practice. You practice it. What you thrown? You thrown like rubber bottles. So
they're really hard bottles, I think it is.
Aye.
Superstar glass, fucking hell.
But hey, I'm going to jump here, just go to the bathroom. I'll be back.
Go for it, mate. Go for it.
That's sweet, man.
So
what we can look back on here is right. I've made a cocktail because I've mixed something that tastes all right. You've got somebody to make you a cocktail.
Yeah,
that's what you've had a cocktail delivered to you by a hand. There's a
just a hand. Aye.
Pop through the door, get a cocktail.
Walks up the stairs.
Walks up the stairs. It's like the thing for the Addams Family. Whereas I've sat here with nothing and made that isn't that bad.
So basically both of us are lazy bastards, is what you're saying.
I've walked 32,000 steps today. I wore my eyes on belt.
You could have walked to the shop and got off.
I couldn't have walked to the shop anywhere like that.
It's like lightning speed there, like.
No, okay, that was quick.
It's like fire hose. Stop there. There, I can sit there, relax again. I know, but they use like plastic bottles and like hard, like really hard glass ones. But like, it's just something I'd love to be able to do it. Like the guys but I've never done anything like that. I think I'd enter a couple of cocktail competitions when bars start reopening. Like brands do them quite a bit, where you submit like your kind of interpretation of what you could do with their brand. But a lot of them, like, kind of, I'm not a big fan of people getting you to buy something to then advertise it for them. And a lot of it comes down to, can you do a competition for us? You've got to buy our alcohol though. And I'm like, no, if you send me your alcohol, I'll make you a cocktail. But
which should be like,
I'm kind of, so a few people have approached me about doing it, but smaller brands, and I've kind of said no. And then other companies that I've done work with, kind of just send your stuff and go, just experiment with that. But when you have the luxury of working in a bar, you've got a whole bar at your back, so you can start like mixing up stuff, and it's not really costing you anything.
Yeah.
And having to go at it, and it's good for the bar. But like I've kind of built up my collection through work and through Amazon. So now I can kind of experiment. Most of the time, if I'm spending money, it's on a liqueur or something like that, because I've kind of got all the core spirits that I need other than tequila.
I don't like tequila, man.
I love tequila.
No.
The only tequila that I like is Café Patron, because it tastes like coffee.
Aye. That's the only one I've ever liked.
Howling, man.
The only drink I like, I cannot, even if I smell it, I'm actually boking thinking about it, is Sambuca. I fucking hate it.
Oh, it's horrible. All of them are, to be honest.
But I'll drink it if there's tequila and there's Sambuca. I'll drink the Sambuca. But
Kenny, I remember being in when Kenny and I went to college together years ago, and we had a college night out. I don't know if you were there actually, Kenny. It may have just been my year, but we were in. What's the one you go downstairs in Glasgow, and is it Bamboo?
Bamboo, you go down the stairs.
Aye. We were in Bamboo, and we were at the bar, and the boys were like, "What shots we getting?" And I was like, "Anything apart from Sambuca. Just don't get me Sambuca." So obviously they bought me Sambuca, just being dicks. And as soon as I drank it, I spewed all over the bar. Get chucked out. Never again.
I know a few people have done that. Like,
have you done that? Is that the only time you've ever been sick at the bar? Yeah.
Aye.
You ever been sick at the bar, Matthew?
I have actually. The exact same scenario, like but with tequila. It was two of us were sick as well. It wasn't even we both had it. Like, and I wasn't even drinking. I just had it like, I got a shot, and I was like, okay, just did a shot and just went. I was living in Valencia. It was rotten.
Wow,
absolutely howling.
How's your Spanish?
Massive esa por favor is about the max. It's kind of like it's Kevin Bridges esque, to be honest.
You should have got the job for them, man, rather than Gary Neville. You'd probably done it.
100%. The Mestalla was unbelievable though too. Like not massive into football, but see going to the Mestalla, like the games are so cheap. You're talking like €12 a ticket unless you're playing Barca. Like you could go and you like any seat is a good seat because it's so steep. You'd stand up and you kind of feel like you're about to fall in.
Fall over.
But the atmosphere was brilliant. Like in Spain and outside the stadium, it's just class. So well, it's because you're getting good weather 90% of the time. So it's much nicer sitting in a stadium like that.
I feel as if, Kenny, you've skipped over the story of you being sick. Have you done it a few times, I take it, by your reaction?
I've done it once, man. I've done it once in St McGinty's. My mate got us a shot and I just done that on the bar. Just sick everywhere, man. But 10 minutes later, I did get kicked out. But 9 minutes of fighting.
Aye, once they found you in the toilet.
You stood in the middle of the bar like that. How dare they?
Right, Matthew, one thing we were really keen to ask you about as well. So we kind of, it was your good friend Andres who put us in contact basically and said you should check out the Irish Cocktail Guy. So how did you get into MMA? What was the thought process? Was it more kind of training? Were you thinking about competing? What was the ideas behind it?
I'd always kind of been interested in like when I was younger, I wanted to box. My mum wouldn't let me go anywhere near a boxing club because she was too afraid of me losing my teeth. So I started playing Gaelic, which might as well have been boxing. I suppose like when I came back from uni my first year, one Easter actually it was, I got jumped back in my village by like 19 people, just kicked the shit out of me. And I knew I'm assuming like no reason. It came about just typical North Ireland, like Northern Ireland stuff was what'd you say about me being English? I was sober. I was driving my mate home and I was shouting at her to hurry up. And her nickname was Spud because, Irish potatoes. I was like, Spud, will you hurry up? I was like, will you hurry up? And this guy standing in the middle of the room was, what'd you say about me being English? And it kind of went from there. And then I kind of thought it diffused and then walked away. And then these guys started running down the street, essentially just came straight through me. Just got decked. There's nothing I could do. And even now, I've trained for 4 years. There's still nothing I could do in that scenario. I'd maybe be able to get a few digs in first, but that's it. But I always kind of wanted me to be able to, from that, like hold my own. And if that ever happened again, I'd be the one that would be finishing it. No, there's no way. If you get attacked by a group, you're getting attacked by a group. There's nothing you're going to do. It's group mentality, mob mentality, and it's just it's cards ultimately. But that happened, and then I was in Valencia and I read John Kavanagh's book on Win or Learn, and I loved his thought process on like being calm in the chaos, and like the idea of community and the idea of how his gym worked. And I thought that's exactly what I need. At the point I was in my life, I was going through a few things, and I just need to clear my head. And I came back, and Dean Riley, who's MMA coach in the Grip House, he was running a course, and I'd signed up to it when I was in Valencia for beginners, 5 weeks, 3 classes a week. And after like the first class, I remember just coming out being like, I'm absolutely hooked. Like, it was the first time I'd got out of my head in months, and it just kind of went from there, and I just kept doing it. And it was more about kind of being able to like handle yourself. And I think what comes from training in martial arts is you don't ever really want to be in fights. Yeah. You're probably, the way I look at it, and I've had a few people who don't train in it, friends, and all like, oh, it's great, you know, if you go on a night out, like with us, if anything happens, we're grand. I'm like, if anything happens, I'm probably going to be the guy that steps aside, unless someone's getting attacked who's vulnerable or something's completely out of line. I'm probably going to step to the side because I don't want the challenge. I don't want to fight someone in the street. I want to fight someone in the
discipline. It's discipline. It's no.
Yeah, I want to challenge myself. Like I love sparring. I love going against it, like the hardest guys in the gym, and get like making each other better. But fighting someone in the street, and as soon as they start fighting, their hands drop down, you're like I love watching people fight in the street. I think it's hilarious. But that kind of got me into it, and I just kept going. I was going every single night, and I want to compete. I was hoping to compete a bit sooner than I haven't had my debut yet. But I moved with work, so I moved over. I worked down in the west coast of Scotland for a year and kept commuting up to Glasgow to train every day. And then I moved to Ireland, and I trained in a gym in Tullamore under this guy called Kieran Davern, who's a black belt under John Kavanagh, SPG Tullamore, and it was a brilliant gym. So I did loads of grappling over there. I did a few jiu-jitsu competitions and things like that, and kind of started doing that and focusing more on grappling, because before I was always kind of into striking and wrestling, so I could never go to the ground because I didn't like it. And kind of was over there, took advantage of this guy. He's fantastic. He's on Polaris and stuff, Kieran Davern. He's a great guy, great gym. And then finished there, moved up to the Highlands of Scotland, and I was training in SPG Murray with the head coach Martin Donaldson and Kev McClune and Aidan Stevens, Cage Warriors professional fighter out of there. Right. So just trained there for a bit. So because I've been through loads of gyms, and then kind of COVID happened, I was meant to have a novice MMA fight, which is where you wear shin guards, and that was probably actually this time last year. I was meant to be fighting in it, and then obviously everything else happened. I was hoping that would lead into me getting my debut in amateurs, but I want to compete. I don't see myself ever going like professional or anything like that. This is more a hobby for me, but I'd love to have a few amateur MMA fights, kickboxing fights. Stuff like that. Like, that's just it's a discipline for it. It's a calmness. It's whenever someone's standing in front of you and you can't think of anything else because you're like, this guy's going to hit me. And that's kind of, people find it weird, but that's what I just like. That's when I'm at my calmness. That's when I'm relaxed. And it's like a game of chess. You're watching them. What are they doing? Okay, right. They're doing that. That's their tail. I know if they do that, I'm going to do this. And then they're thinking the same thing. And then they're trying to be that one step ahead of the person, but it's interesting. So it's something that, like, me and Andres trained together, me and Jamie trained together, and a few other guys. So it's brilliant. Like,
we might need to come down, Kenny. Give it a wee try with the three former podcast guests. Get our asses kicked.
Get our asses absolutely.
Come down, get it on video. Get Andres to video it.
But
I've done kickboxing twice. I tried kickboxing. It was really, really good. It's so hard, man. So hard. It like humbles you so much, man. I know that I think I'm a fit person by any means at this point in time, but it's just a different ballgame, man. It's no something that you can just pick up and run with. But some people are naturally gifted at golf or football or martial art itself. You're not just walking in and being very good at that.
It's a technique, and years, and everyone's still learning. Even the masters are still learning at it. But like the one thing I found, and kind of comes like the cocktails, people are intimidated. People think, oh, MMA gym, it's going to be a bunch of hard men. Like couldn't be further from the truth. Seeing you go into the Grip House, it's in like the nicest people. Whether you're doing jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, MMA, like you come in, the coaches are fantastic, and everyone like is sitting there like, yeah, I'll take time and train you. I remember going into the team classes in MMA after training for like 7 weeks and we're doing stuff on the walls, like the cages. I've never done this before, and this guy's Nathan Hughes, who fights at a higher level now. He was just like, oh, don't worry, I'll show you how to do it. He spent this whole hour showing me how to do stuff, and I do the same for people now. Yeah. So it's one of those things. It's like, if you ever want to come up, definitely give us a shout. I'm sure me, Andres, and Jamie will definitely be up for holding pads, showing you a few things.
Definitely, I'll be up for that.
I will try. Obviously, I would try it. I'm not a shite bag, but
I'm not so.
But it's like you say, these people that take the time, it's what makes it really, innit? Because people can be arseholes, and you're like, it's just off-putting. Whereas like
100%.
You've said it, Andres has said it, Jamie said it. They're all nice people, and that's kind of all you look for.
The one thing I always notice is, see, when you look at the MMA team, there's no way all of us would be mates if it wasn't for the MMA team. Like we're all from such different backgrounds, different parts of town, different countries. But we're all really good mates, and we'd all have each other's back no matter what. And it comes outside the mat. Like if anyone needs anything, it's the same thing. We support each other, and everyone's doing well. Like
community, a family.
Yeah, exactly. And the gym is the same way. Like Guy Ramsey, one of the owners of the Grip House, and Paul McVeigh, who's a former two-weight champion in Cage Warriors. Like he had it before McGregor, and he's from back home. He's from where my brother and sister are from. Wow. He's brilliant. Like they're also it's just so nice. Like you go in and you've got guys that are like, you think they're all like hardmen, but they're into like cartoons or like fashion or like cocktails. You know what I mean?
That's funny. It's funny how you described Jamie, Andres, and you there. Cartoons. Jamie's big into Dragon Ball Z and all that kind of stuff. Andres is fashion. Brilliant.
Cocktails, and then you've got like everyone's got collie ears, but like all of them are just kind of. They're grand. They'll take time, although you get the odd new guy comes in and throws something at you, and you're like, oh, that's a bit dangerous. Like, I might have to hit him a wee bit harder so he doesn't do that again.
I'll try and be as nice as possible then. Fuck.
I think the rules hit as hard as you want to be hit.
That's it, man.
So, but I mean, that's only when you started the sparring and stuff. I remember my very first sparring round in my nose. I got hit in this right hand, and my nose just burst. And I remember just sitting going, "Do we stop?" And the guy just looked at me, and no one stopped me. And I was like, "All right, we'll just go." And like, I at that point, I was like, "I love this. Like, this is amazing." But it's a bit psychotic, I think. Some part in it.
Matthew, what's your honest opinion of Conor McGregor? What do you think about him? I always like to ask Irish people. Like,
he's whiskey. We think he's whiskey.
I like it.
So is whiskey like people? Right, see, people don't like his whiskey, so don't like him, right? But his whiskey's just Bushmills. Like it's Bushmills distillery whiskies, and people love Bushmills. It's the third biggest selling Irish whiskey in the world, but because it's named after him, people don't like it. So what he's just went to Bushmills and gone, I want a whiskey. He's went all over Ireland and no one sold him because they don't want to be associated with him. Bushmills have gone, all right, okay, we'll make you one. You can have this one, this one, this one, this one. That one starts at £5 a bottle. That one starts at £20 a bottle. And they'll pick a price point, and then they'll pick a whiskey so on that price point. But I think his whiskey's fine. Like it's not one of the
smooth. It's like you said, like a triple distilled Irish whiskey. It's actually quite nice. Like,
is it not owned by some sort of tequila company?
So it's just been bought by Jose Cuervo, but they own Bushmills.
Right, okay.
Distillery. So Diageo used to own Bushmills. Yes, I think they've bought him out. They kind of just disassociate themselves from him. I like the story of Conor McGregor. Like, I think what he did is fantastic. There's no arguing. His rise from where he was to where he is was unbelievable. His fighting is incredible.
He's a great fighter,
people love to hate him. That last fight with Dustin Poirier, he's at least in the immediate aftermath, he's a humble loser. He takes it. He respects people. I've seen him walk with Poirier's wife.
Anytime he's beat
he accepts a defeat, and he realizes he has to move forward, and then he gets that drive and that hunger, and then that's when the old McGregor comes out, like when the Nate Diaz 2 fight. You could see, like, afterwards, after the first one, he's like, oh yeah, I did this wrong, did that, and then the second, building up to the second one, is back into his old self. But there's that respect.
Yeah.
In terms of some mistakes he's made in his life, like, there's lots of rumors going on, and there's always going to be rumors going on about him. I don't know if they're true or not, but if some of them are, I kind of like, amount of WhatsApps going around Ireland groups, like, oh, seen McGregor get arrested in this or something like that, and you're like, who told you? John's cousin's in the guards, and his sister said, and you're like, right.
That's like, I bet you it's somebody like, that's like somebody saying, oh, I've just seen Jamie Dornan get arrested in Glasgow. And really, it's just you, just Stephen it's
on like TMZ or something. Like, what's your name, Jimmy?
What I was listening to Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan asked Dustin about what did you feel the difference between the fights? Because when you fought Conor the first time, he's the mouthy, arrogant, not so much arrogant, but just mouthy.
He was arrogant, right?
Right, okay, so he was just this fucking whirlwind of like banter back and forth. He's putting his, it's like, it was so off-putting, man. Like, and there's that, and then there's the media on top of that you need to do all your media appearances. It's fucking so difficult. Whereas this time there wasn't a big media week. There wasn't flying around the world. Conor McGregor was really calm, cool, and collected, and he's like, so if he was being an arse and trying to wind you up, he's like, oh, definitely puts you off your game.
Aye.
So you went, I would you be a dick, Conor? Like,
that's what he does best. That's what he gets in people's heads, doesn't he? Or used to.
Well, that's it. He gets in people's heads, and he wins a fight before. But like, like, see the stuff I'm hitting that old guy. Like, what was he doing? Like, it's just stupid. And like the other stuff, like,
we've all hit old guys, so it's fine. We've all done it.
Like, sometimes somebody says they don't like my cocktail. Like, it's
you're like, fuck it.
Kick.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. I don't know him as a person. From people I've heard, like, when I trained in Tullamore and stuff like that, like, people haven't had the nicest things to say about him in his camps and stuff. But ultimately, I think he's a fantastic fighter, and that's what I like to watching him. I think I'm hoping that we get to see him a few more times before he actually does retire. And the fact that he's got all that money and he's still wanting to fight kind of shows that he does enjoy it. Because
passion,
I mean, if I had, I probably still would train if I had all that money, because I enjoy it, and it's a relaxing for me. But he doesn't need to go and fight the biggest guys in the world or risk his brain, because he doesn't need any more money. But like the other stuff on the other side, like the stories of him, like,
and stuff, but fucking bills to pay, man.
Like the stories of all the back, like the parties and like the sexual assaults and all that, like, who knows?
Who knows? Mm-hmm.
Like, if it comes out and it's all been proven and stuff, and then, but the other thing is there's money involved, so stuff might not ever get proven. So I don't know. I just try to focus on his fighting and just appreciate that, and then try to separate the other side of him.
Like, he was the reason why I started watching MMA. Like, I wasn't really, I knew it was there, but I never really paid much attention to it. And it was just when he was supposed to fight Jose Aldo the first time, and it got cancelled, the build up to that, I was like, who is this Irish guy? He is hilarious. Like, he's so, just the way he speaks, man, he's so fluent.
He's
brilliant. And then
that was when I started getting into it as well. That Mendes fight.
That was incredible. That was the first fight I ever watched. It was McGregor Mendes.
I remember watching it in a bar in South Carolina on a wee laptop, and the stream was cutting out, and McGregor's on the mat getting thrown elbows from the bottom, and then all of a sudden the screen freezes, and I'm like, shit, he's going to lose. And all these Americans around me like, yeah, Mendes and all this, and then the screen comes back up, and McGregor's sitting there like this, and I'm like, yes. I couldn't stop me that night. That was a brilliant night. Like,
also,
that's what got me into it.
The Floyd Mayweather fight, like, I remember thinking, what the fuck? Like, no other athlete could ever see because of his profile. I don't think anybody else could make that transition and sell out as, like, to get a fight with Floyd Mayweather. I think in his head he probably did think he was going to win. Maybe, I don't know, but and every other person said like who's a boxer or knows about boxing, you're thinking, right, Floyd Mayweather's like 49-0, he's going to win this fight, but regardless, he was getting like $50 million for it, so he's probably thinking, don't give a fuck, I'm getting a big payday, do you know what I mean?
100%. If Floyd Mayweather offered to fight me, I'd go. So,
who's
knock
the
me
guy?
in 2 seconds.
Who's the American guy?
Logan Paul.
Logan Paul.
Aye. Jake Paul's fighting a few people. Logan Paul's fighting was meant. I don't know if it's been cancelled or not. I've seen a few things about it.
Due to like a pay-per-view interest or something like that. But I think he'll fight MD, man. We should tweet him.
At Floyd, more into the grip house.
Jamie Dornan versus Logan Paul.
That's it. I mean, I'd fight him. I'd fight anyone. Like, I think it'd be a bit of crack. Like,
I'd fight him because I fucking hate him. But
like those guys who are like, you look at that Jake Paul and all, like, they're obviously not amazing fighters, but and they've got all that money and all they're doing is just training. Like, they're going to be all right. Like, they're not going to be.
They'll be seasoned.
People say like you're a YouTube guy and that's all, but it's like, well, they're a YouTube person who's made a load of money and now they can just pay all these coaches to just coach them boxing. They're only learning one discipline. It's not like they're sitting trying to do MMA where you're trying to do multiple disciplines.
I would love to see him fighting in an MMA fight with McGregor. That would be fucking. He would just toy with him.
He was meant to fight him. Or he's trying to get him to fight him. Sent him DMs on Instagram and stuff.
Like that's. I think Darren Till said it somewhere. It's like talking about, could you beat Anthony Joshua? I think Till said it's like in a boxing fight, no. Anthony Joshua's amazing, but in a street fight, yes, because all I've got to do is get him to the ground and I win. Anthony Joshua's not doing any. He's not getting any power because he's not throwing from his legs.
That's the thing about MMA though. Like, you're the ultimate fighter. Obviously, I know it's a bit thing. Do you know what I mean? Like UFC, but you're the ultimate fighter because if somebody's one-dimensional, like they're a striker, they're a fucking whatever kickboxer, you can just take them to the ground and that's it. So,
exactly.
Game over.
With the UFC, the king of the disciplines.
You're the king of combat sport, aren't you?
And you see how like the different disciplines change and people evolve. Or like you look at Khabib and how dominant Khabib's been over the years through his style of wrestling and ground and pound. Like, people haven't found a way to beat that yet. And then you see other people trying to copy it. You look at McGregor and even take out the martial arts, the trash talk, and everyone's trying to beat him. Like,
one person I cannot fucking stand is Colby Covington. He is trying to be McGregor, and I'm like, Kenny, if you've no seen him, like, go and watch him.
He's a fan of, like,
he's like this pro-Trump white fucking supremacist wanker. I can't stand him.
He's honestly like everything I hate in human beings.
100%.
In one, like, and his pattern shit. Like, he's got no pattern.
At least McGregor can back it up,
it's like that, like that. They just don't get sarcasm and stuff in America sometimes. Like, sorry if any of my brothers are watching this, like, but they don't get sarcasm sometimes. Some of them do, but like, it's
a different comedy, isn't it?
It is. It's a lot simpler.
Even when you look at American comedians and British comedians, like the difference between them is British, Scottish, or whatever. They're very dark humoured and.
Dry humour, man.
Very dry. You look at Frankie Boyle, it's a prime example of it.
Fucking love Frankie Boyle.
I remember these two. I saw him in the stand, and these two Americans walked out making 9/11 jokes straight off the bat. Like, they just walked out. I was like,
Kenny cringes, didn't you?
That's so difficult to watch that kind of comedy.
I love it.
I like Kevin Bridges. I like Kevin Hart. I like a lot of Kevin comedians. Kevin.
The Kevins.
Who did I watch the other day? Who was the guy that's on Joe Rogan quite a bit? He's a bit more.
Bert Kreischer? Bill Burr. Bill Burr's good.
He's funny. But he's a bit more raw.
There's
especially.
There's a guy, I think he's living in Edinburgh, I think he's from Port Glasgow, Scott Gibson.
Right.
And he's brilliant. I think he's if not, he's my favourite comedian. I've seen him every time he's at the Fringe, and seen him in Glasgow a few times. I think he's brilliant because he does. I've seen him in what do you call a place in the bars?
The Barrowlands.
but the place beside St. Luke's.
That's brilliant in there, the church.
And he comes on, and I remember buying a ticket to see him. I'd seen him once before, just kind of. I think I seen him at the Fringe, and he came in. He just started talking, and then he goes, right, I'll just go take a break, and we'll start the show. And he'd been on for 45, 55 minutes, and he just done this. That was his warm up. It was just kind of before he started the show. He was talking about current affairs, and he was brilliant. And then he went off, took like a 5-10 minute break, came back on, and did an hour and 10 minutes of a show.
Fucking wow, man!
The guy's brilliant, and he sells out the Fringe most years, I think, in the shows. But he's so funny, like so funny.
Is it what kind of funny though? Is it Frankie Boyle funny, or is it?
I think it's like kind of Kevin Bridges, kind of a wee bit of Frankie Boyle, but not the extremes of Frankie Boyle. It's more like kind of Scottish, kind of Irish humor,
banter,
and he does it very well. I remember I walked in and he goes, anyone from Ireland? And I goes, yeah. And he goes, where are you from? And I goes, Belfast. He goes, that's not really Ireland though, is it? I goes, whoa. And he goes, all right, calm down, take off your sash. And I was like, great, this guy's quality. I didn't know what to say. I just kind of sat there like, raging, just walking out. The balaclava on.
Matthew, we've got one more question we want to ask, right?
This is a good question for you as well.
But before we do it, I need to jump to the toilet because I am absolutely.
Well, I'll ask you. I'm trying to remember to ask everybody this question.
So you go for it. I'll jump back.
Everything you do and everything goes on in your life. What's like your biggest pet peeve? What annoys you the most?
What annoys me the most?
Your wee pet peeve, like if you see somebody making a cocktail and they're not putting certain bits in it, or just eating at all.
Anything. My biggest pet peeve in cocktails is I've got a few pet peeves. Like so many, I've sent a few cocktails back. Like, and I'm not that like I've worked in hospitality, so I'm not that's like this cocktail snob. But I remember paying £10 for a mojito in Glasgow, and I was like, I'll have a mojito. And it came and it just tasted of soda water. And I was like, I've spent £10 in this. Like, and I knew I saw the guy making it was like a new guy, so he needs to learn. But at the same time, it's like if you're over diluting your cocktails, or you just don't know how to make them, don't be making them, or at least have someone taste them. That's what when I started, people were tasting my cocktails. But pet peeves in that is, I say honestly, my biggest pet peeve in cocktails is people overcomplicating stuff. It doesn't need to be complicated. In big bars and stuff, I can see it. You're making loads of them, but yeah, do it. If I go to a bar, I look for the most unorthodox cocktail. Like what is that I would never try, or like I remember having the beetroot and apple. I've actually made a cocktail myself with it. Beetroot and apple gin cocktail. Beetroot and apple,
man. I would try that.
It was nice. It was nice. It was really nice. It was in the West End of Glasgow, and I remember going, I'll have that. Or like other times I've looked at other cocktails which are just random. I'll have them. But yeah, I'd say pet peeve wise cocktails is someone not knowing how to make them and making them and them overcharging the price. Or overcomplicating stuff that doesn't need to be made complicated. And then the other biggest pet peeve, just a general completely out of context, is just people talking shit. You see people just like telling wee white lies, but then thinking that you're not smart enough to realize them. It just happens all the time. People do it and you're like...
I feel like there's some sort of... When people talk shite, right, and they're talking shite, as if there's some sort of agreement, because you need the other person has to go, I know, or agree for that to become a white lie. Whereas if you go talking shite at you, 90% of people are going to go, I know. It's so tough.
You're the best at that, Kenny. I've never heard somebody like if somebody says something, he's like, no, he didn't. Straight away, like,
I just find it.
No, he didn't. I love that pattern.
Did you? Did
you?
Is that an island as well? Do you do that as well?
No, I've got that since I've been over here. Like, but
that was a Kevin Bridges joke, though. He started that. Do you know what I mean?
the amount of times people like you've said that, or you've said it in group chats, and people just erupt. Like, it's so funny. Like, I did you?
It's like a silver bullet in it. You just did you? Aye. It's done.
You need to just say aye. You can't use. There's no comeback to it.
It's either aye or leave the chat.
But that, and then pouring pints of Guinness wrong. Gee, like, I know me and Andrea said if that was for like something else, but see when people pour a pint and it's just like, see if someone puts this pint in front of me and I just drop it and just leave it sitting there and they're not putting it in an angle or anything like that. Like, I've reached behind the bar before and stopped the pint.
Have you?
A guy was out in England. The guy was not happy. And it was like 2:00 in the afternoon. I ordered a round for one of my mates, and I was driving, but I was ordering the pint of Guinness. So he sat it down, he poured it, just left it to go. So I'm sitting watching this, like, is he going to come back here? Because it needs to stop it here, because that's what you have to do. And he didn't. He was back with me the whole time. I was like, this guy's not doing that. So I just like reached behind, tipped it off, and then pushed it back to finish it. And the guy turned around as I was doing it, and I was just like, you weren't doing it right. And he was just raging at me. But because I wasn't drinking, he couldn't really do it. I was like, mate, you weren't doing it right. But
which is fair enough, because there is times I've seen people pouring pints of Guinness and they just the glass just sits there, they pull the tap, they stop it, they leave it, it settles, and then they top it off.
Aye.
I don't know if that's right or wrong, but
I mean, I'm probably being overly picky, but you're meant to put it at 45 degrees, and I've actually got a certificate from the Guinness storehouse to prove that I can do this right from when I went there in Dublin. But you put it at 45 degrees and turn it around and slowly bring it down and then stop it at the harp, and then you push it back and you fill it up to the top after you've left it to sit. But if people do it wrong, you get massive heads and stuff like that, and it's just I'd be a big pet peeve.
Have you done this Stellar pouring the pint? You know, you pull the pint and you do that with the blade.
Oh, aye, yeah.
They used to come to when I worked in the Marriott in the gym. All the bar staff got 100 quid, like 150 quid for pouring the perfect pint of Stellar.
That's class.
Free money in it.
Exactly.
That's my pet peeve, man. People getting money for doing their Right, Gav,
the big question.
The BQ, man. Aye.
This is the most anticipated question. Like, aye, this is the perfect guest for this question.
Just fucking
right,
no.
Right, Matthew.
Go, Gav, do it. Go. That'll be good.
Here. Is that my connection going?
Don't fuck it up, Gav, right? Don't fuck it up.
If you could have one drink and one drink only, what would you have and who would it be with? Now, the person you might have it with, it could be famous, not famous, dead, alive, whatever. Anybody at all. I'm intrigued about the drink, though. Oh.
The drink?
See if you say James.
Jamie Dorman.
Right, I'll go two people, right? One dead or one kind of not famous, one famous.
Go for it.
Drink wise, I have one drink and one drink.
Well, you're only have one person, but you.
No, I'll go two.
I don't know. I generally think it'd be a pint of Guinness.
Nice.
Like, but if I was to pick a cocktail, it would be if it was to pick a cocktail, probably an espresso martini or some form of variation on it. Oh no, that's a lie. White Russian, all day. Biscoff White Russian.
Oh, Lebowski's do the White Russian.
I did a variation on it there a while back as well, and I did a chocolate orange one, but a White Russian, a mint arrow White Russian from Block. Actually, that's what I would have if I could drink that forever. Or I did one recently, a Bananarama, but we're getting ahead of ourselves here. The Bananarama was so like me and Andres made that, and we could drink about 6 of them. But yeah, so a White Russian, and then it'd go be a bit sappy. But if one person famous would be McGranny, because I could just sit there and talk shit there for ages.
Yes,
love it.
Brilliant. That's typical Irish granny. I could do no wrong. And if my mum's got this far in the podcast, she'll know that's true. And someone famous who could sit and have a drink with. Jeez, I think I'd love to have a drink with John Kavanagh, the MMA coach. I think it would be so cool to get his insight, because when you listen to him speak in the cage, he's so calm, he's so collected. And from reading his book and hearing his story and stuff, I think it would be quality just to sit and actually get more of an insight into what he thinks. And he's so, like, his success. I think that would be really interesting.
The thing about John Kavanagh is his success is like huge, but he's such a normal guy. Like, he's so simple and normal, and just nothing really phases him. He's so humble.
That's kind of what I'd love to just say, because I feel like you could have it'd be like having he's a type of guy like you're like Ed Sheeran or Lewis Capaldi you can sit and have a drink with, and you could sit there and actually have the chat, whereas other people kind of maybe think they're better. That's
too big time.
But too big time for you. But you could sit there and Lewis Capaldi, crack a bottle of Buckfast, and you'd be living the dream.
Well on, or you'd be loving
it. But I think John Kavanagh would be really interesting, because he's seen so much, and you feel like he's the type of guy that sits back and just watches and picks up stuff. And you'd be like, I'd love to get an insight into that, and like how he interprets fighting. If he watches something, what does he think? What does he look for? What are the signs? Stuff like that. I think that'd be really interesting.
Brilliant.
But I definitely White Russian.
You've had a right good think about it.
Aye.
So a White Russian with your granny and a White Russian with John Kavanagh. Maybe you could all have a drink together and just have a big Irish chat.
My granny would just embarrass me though. She always calls me out for talking. She always did call me out for talking shit.
Did you?
I walk in acting, essentially. I walk in acting the big man in front of my mates, showing off. And she'd be like, "Shut up, Matthew, just rip me apart straight away. There's nothing I could say. She's too quick." I'd be like, "All right."
That's amazing, man.
Yeah. She'd be like, "Did you?" Aye.
Did you?
Right, we'll not take up any more of your time, Matthew.
You're just the Irish cocktail guy everywhere, all the place?
The Irish cocktail guy. Well, it's only Instagram at the minute, but YouTube will be coming out soon. And then I'll be launching the website soon after that. Still not worked out how to get Facebook separated from my normal Facebook and have the Irish cocktail guy, but I'll find some way to get Zuckerberg in on it. But yeah, so just the Irish cocktail guy on Instagram, and then check there for any more updates.
Definitely. Well, let us know if you do come up with your kind of your website or any more social media platforms, your YouTube. Let us know what the links are, and we'll post them for you as well. And
perfect.
Be amazing.
I'll be sharing this on my channels as well, so I'll share this on my personal and my private.
I look forward to trying one of your Terry's chocolate orange White Russians anyway. So.
Have we look at it? I've used Salerno in it, which is like a blood orange liqueur. Right. You can just use Cointreau or Triple Sec or something like that, which you get in Tesco's.
Right, okay. Brilliant.
Brilliant.
All right, guys. Thanks very much.
Guys, thank you. Take care.
Good
Till next time.
All right.
See you later.
See you later on.